The following is one of countless conversations heard across the nation.
Hey babe, what you doing?
I was just watching YouTube videos.
Oh, did Compulsive Gun Buyer ever put out that PLxC NX8 comparison?
No, the freaking goon's been keeping me in suspense for about a month now.
To be fair, it was probably about 3 months, but I hope it's been worth the wait because today's video, it's gonna be pretty neat. What's up guys? Been a little while since we've talked, but here we go. If you want a lightweight, high-performing 1-8X LPVO, you basically have two options. The Nightforce NX8 and the newly released PLX Compact from Primary Arms. Both weigh in at about 17 ounces and are made with high-quality Japanese glass. So we're going to compare them side by side, looking at the same set of criteria for both. I'll put that on the screen so you can track with it. And once we've looked at all these features and capabilities, we'll pick a winner for each category. Let's get to it. So let's get a few things out of the way from the outset. Weight. Amazingly, the PLX is lighter than the NX8 by over half an ounce, which is significant as anyone knows who seriously tried to manage the weight on a rifle. The exact published numbers are 16.95 ounces for the PLxC and 17.6 ounces for the NX8. This is somewhat remarkable since the NX8 was the lightest scope in its class until the PLX came around. Alright, next up is construction, by which I mean how the scope feels in the hand. And for the PLX, it's good. I mean, it's not the best tube I've ever held in my hand, but, compared to the NX8, it actually feels like it should be heavier. The NX8 is not bad. Nightforce makes some pretty robust optics, but there are a few things where I'd give the PLX some additional brownie points. So one is the knurling, which you'll see on some of these surfaces. I think these feel better than what's on the Nightforce, but I think both are acceptable, and I haven't done any true testing in wet conditions to see which is easier to operate. So this one is pretty subjective. Okay, a couple other things. The diopter adjustment on the PLX is different from the NX8. The PLX uses this ring similar to most scopes. The ring is pretty stiff, so it should be a set it and forget it type of thing, but you could adjust it on the fly if you needed to. The NX8 turns the entire rear housing and then uses this locking ring to keep it in place. In theory, this is maybe a better idea, but the problem is the locking ring has to be twisted into place, which inevitably changes the diopter adjustment that you're trying to lock in, so you have to guesstimate where the whole thing will end up once it locks out, and it's just a bit of a pain. So that's a point in favor of the PLX in my opinion. The turret caps are good in both cases, clicks are audible, but again, the PLX beats the NX8 by having a capped elevation turret. I guess this is subjective too, but capped turrets make more sense on a 1-8 LPVO. It's a fighting rifle, and you want that stuff locked into place. I was out shooting the other day with the NX8, and I was missing every shot. Come to find out, the elevation was knocked out of place. I'm not the first to make this complaint about the NX8, so I think it's a valid criticism. For field of view, I'm just going to lay out the numbers as they're reported on the websites. According to Nightforce, the NX8 has a 1x field of view of 106 feet and a 8x field of view of 13.2 feet. And almost as if the folks at Primary Arms designed their scope with the NX8 specs in mind, the PLxC edges out these numbers with a low magnification field of view of 121 feet and a high magnification field of view of 14.6 feet, again compared to 106 and 13.2. Okay, for reticles. For the NX8, you can choose between 2 reticles. For the PLX, you get 3. For the NX8, it's 1 mil reticle and 1 MOA reticle. I'm just going to show them here. Basically a preference thing. The Primary Arms, like I said, it has 3. You've got a yard BDC, a metric BDC, and a mil rad. I'm a sucker for BDCs, and I like the Christmas tree, so I'd probably give this the PLxC again. But again, pick whatever reticle you like. Now, the PLX reticle that I have is the ACSS Raptor M8 metric reticle, which is not my favorite since I see the world in yards, but this was the only one in stock when I purchased it, and I wanted to get this video to you guys sooner rather than later. But because I want to send this particular optic back so that I can get the reticle that I prefer, I didn't do any live fire with this particular optic, which brings up some limitations of this video. Without live fire, I don't consider this to be a review. I call this a demonstration, a look-through, if you will. In my mind, a review is when you use a product in its intended fashion for a not insignificant amount of time, long enough to provide a well-informed personal recommendation at the end. So for guns and accessories, that usually requires at least hundreds of rounds. And that's not what I've done with this optic. I can demonstrate the various features in a way that essentially brings the spec sheet to life, and I can give my rough opinions from that, but I can't in good conscience give you an overall buy, don't buy recommendation. And frankly, you don't need me to do that when you've got Garantham out there shooting through thousands of rounds for every review. I do hope to do some reviews in the future just to add my voice to the mix, and there are probably a handful of items for which I could do a review now, but this particular video is a demo. It's a cool demo with footage you won't see anywhere else to my knowledge, but it's just a demo. And speaking of some of that footage, let's get outside and check out the glass. So we'll start with the PLX. It's a bright, sunny day. We're looking across to my wife holding my homemade eye chart at about 110 yards. The sunlight washes out the letters, but you can kind of make out the third row. And these chairs are about 435 yards away. Okay, here's the NX8. The 1X reticle looks great, by the way. I love how thick the lines are going into the center. And my wife is covering the top row, so the second row that you see here is really the third row, and it is legible. But again, the sun is washing out most of the contrast. And here are the chairs again. In a second, we'll put the two scopes side by side. Okay, now we're looking at the two side by side. So hey, both are made with top-notch Japanese glass. The bezel-less view of the PLX certainly makes for a more enjoyable experience overall, but where it counts, they're both quite nice. So far we've been looking in daylight, but I wanted to also know how these would perform under night vision. Now, I know, LPVOs aren't generally seen as night vision friendly optics, so this test may seem a little bit silly, but here's why it's not. First, we can get a sense for the light transmission, and this is probably the biggest benefit here. But as a secondary benefit, you can use LPVOs with night vision. It may even be advantageous if your target is standing close enough to a light source and you want a zoomed in look. Of course, it would be better to use clip-on night vision, but not everyone can drop 10 Gs on a PVS-24, so a PVS-14, maybe weapon-mounted, or even headborne, might be your best bet in that sort of situation. Or think about hog hunts, where you can light up your target with as much IR as you want without risking spooking them. Unless. Now, some of you who aren't as familiar with night vision might wonder why night vision isn't paired with variable zoom scopes more often. Well, the key term is light transmission. This is how much of the light when passing through your optic comes out on the other side. Glass quality and probably voodoo magic play a big role in this. Anytime your night vision device is placed behind an optic, light transmission will be a key factor in determining how usable your setup is, because a lot of the light that the night vision device uses is already used up going through the scope. This matters even with red dots and holographic sights. Aimpoint T2 red dots are known for having excellent light transmission, with EOTechs being the king in this area. With scopes, the bigger the objective lens, the better the light transmission, generally speaking, so LPVOs, with their relatively small objective lenses, are at a disadvantage when compared to MPVOs, for example. So this is why any serious night vision sniping is done with clip-on night vision that goes in front of your scope, like this. A clear illustration of this light transmission issue is the shadow you see when looking through night vision through a scope, as seen here. It looks from this footage like the PLX has the upper hand. So let's go outside and run a couple more tests. Okay, so we're outside, it's an overcast night with 79% illumination, so pretty bright conditions, and we're looking at my eye chart that's 25 yards away. First up is the PLX, and note that I am using a rail-mounted illuminator. Looks like the third row, once again, is the best you can make out. Here's the NX8. Pretty similar through the NX8 at 25 yards, although the letters are almost clearer, but I think we can say that both perform pretty equally when ample illumination is supplied. And here's the side-by-side. So then I told my partner to walk away into the shadow so we can determine when he's no longer visible. Alright, so check this out. Call out when you get to about 50. He's about 50 yards away now, and it looks like the PLX has a slight edge, and there's no additional illumination here. He's really fading at this point. Stop when you get to about 100. Yeah, you're completely gone from my sight. Yeah, come on back. Now, I know this clip is long, but I want you to see what it actually looks like through night vision when someone is walking towards you. It's sort of a ghostly thing when their figure just phases into view. For comparison's sake, let's look through the EOTech, which, as I said before, is known for having the best night vision light transmission performance. And it really shows. Keep watching as he walks away, and you'll notice that he doesn't really go out of view until maybe 100 yards. And even then, you can still barely make out a shape in the distance, especially if you know where to look. Okay, here he is at 50 yards.
And this time run back when you get that to 100. Yeah, once you get to 100.
Once he gets to 100 yards, I asked him to turn around and sprint back, and that's really cool to watch. Next up on the agenda, we have an Eyebox comparison. This is not easy to show in a video, but as I did in my previous video, I use a two-camera approach to capture and convey the size of the Eyebox. And this time, for all you nerds out there, I'm going to show a table of all the stats. Here's the PLX at 1x. So we'll put 4 inches on the chart, and 5.3 inches for the max eye relief. And this is the side-to-side Eyebox demonstration, still at 1x. And at 3x. Side to side at 3x, 6x for the PLX, side to side at 6x. And finally 8x. Notice here that the 6x and 8x eye relief measures seem to be the same, which is very impressive, especially when we compare it to the NX8 in a second. But first, here's side to side for the PLX at 8x. Now switching to the NX8, I'm going to use the footage from the previous video and just show screenshots with the results. Also, because max eye relief is the key number to boast about, that's all we'll compare against in the table. So we have the PLX numbers on the left, and we will fill in the NX8 measures on the right. So we'll put 3.9 inches for the NX8 max eye relief at 1x, 3.2 inches for 3x, again 3.2 for 6x, and a rather sad 2.8 inches at 8x. This is a common complaint with the NX8. The Eyebox at the top end is just punishing. And when you compare the other measures, the PLX has more eye relief at every single level. Interestingly, you would not get this from reading the spec sheet. Primary Arms reports an eye relief range of 3.2 to 3.7 inches for the PLxC, compared to Nightforce, which only reports a single number of 3.7 for the NX8. So for my analysis, Primary Arms is being very modest. Just something to keep in mind from a brand perspective. Lastly, I want to cover Illumination. This one is a slam dunk for the NX8. It's got super bright, yes, daylight bright illumination, and is very usable when it's on. PLxC is fine, kind of typical in the LPVO space, unless you are a Vortex Razor or the NX8. Or that new Nova scope, which I would like to get my hands on. You can see the NX8 is just beautifully bright, while the PLX is, I guess, daylight visible. Now, to wrap up these findings in a nice bow, let's review the winner in each category. For weight, PLX. Construction, PLX. Field of view, PLX again. Because reticles come down to preference, I've marked this as a tie, although the PLX has more and arguably better options. Clarity is a tie. For night vision performance, the PLX resumes its winning streak, followed by another win for Eyebox. Illumination is the only area where the NX8 handily outperforms the PLX. In fact, I think the NX8 is best in class in this category. So overall, I'd have to give this to the PLX. It's possible that I'm biased since it's the new kid on the block, it's the latest and greatest optic, but it seems pretty good. So some limitations of this video. I don't cover durability or performance under adverse weather conditions. I have not tested the battery life. And of course, I did not shoot a single solitary round with the PLxC. So don't stop here if you are interested in buying either of these optics. Brass Facts and 9 Hole Reviews, just to give 2 channels, both have great videos on both of these scopes with some real world experience and some actual shooting involved. I'm just hoping to fill in the gaps where I can. On a personal note, I want to thank you guys for watching and following this channel so far. It took longer than I was hoping to get this video produced. I do have a full-time job and I've been balls deep in a project that is frankly kicking my butt. Not sure how that works anatomically, that's neither here nor there. Somehow, even with the hiatus, I've managed to grow in subscribers every day, and for that, I am super grateful. And I'll do my best to keep adding value to your feed. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe. You know how to do YouTube. I don't need to tell you that. I love you. I'll catch you later.